to episode 86 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for a virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, following in the Halloween spooky season spirit, our question today is scary or funny Halloween movies. Yes.
Yes.
So I think we did something similar. We talked about books last year during, like, if we read scary books and stuff. But yeah, do you watch many Halloween movies?
So I do love a good Halloween movie, but not a scary Halloween movie. I am a huge wimp. So, like, I like a little bit of, I love like, Hocus Pocus, like, practical magic, The Family, not me, but I suffer through it. Has a thing for, like, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Unpopular opinion, but I really don't like it. It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh, yeah?
Like, it's done in, like, I guess... Tim Burton claymation sort of style, I guess. And while I appreciate the workmanship, so, like, it's set in a place called Halloween Town, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what do you think Halloween Town's gonna be? All the characters are really gross and, like, grotesque and, like, designed to be, like, bleh! So, like, I don't like it.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like, I don't mind Coraline. Like, I kind of like that one. We actually just watched the new Haunted Mansion movie on Disney Plus. And that was actually quite good. Like, it was really good. A lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do like Halloween movies, but they can't be really scary. Like, don't give me, like, any of the Stephen King ones, or like the, like, Jason ones, or like the, what's his name, the Freddy guy that goes into your nightmares. Like,
Freddy?
No way. I don't, or what is it, Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah.
Like, I can't handle anything like that. Even, like, psychological thrillers. Like, the new ones that are coming out, like Get Out, I couldn't watch.
Yeah.
Or, like, I think Jordan Peele did another one, too, and I don't remember what it's called, but...
Nope or something?
Something like that, yeah. And, like, I'm hard up. I'm definitely Nope. Like...
Noping out of that.
No,
yeah.
And, like, that movie that won the Best Picture, I think it was not last year, maybe the year before, Parasite.
Oh, yeah, I watched that.
Like, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
That's
I can't do anything like that.
Mm.
So, give me practical magic. That's about as creepy as I'll go.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like, I won't even watch Jaws. Because, like,
to me,
Jaws is scary.
You know, I watched Jaws for the first time sitting next to you on a plane. I hadn't seen it until we were on our way to go see Moist in Toronto.
Oh!
That's the first time I ever saw it. And there's this part where, like, a body just shows up and I'm on the plane and I'm pretty sure I made out a little, like, I screamed a tiny bit on a plane. I was like, yeah! But it's all you can do.
Yeah. No, I just, like... I'm not into these, like, gory, scary movies. It's not my jam.
Fair.
Yeah. What about you?
I always, like, I never used to like scary movies because they were scary. But I've kind of started to like them a bit more now. Usually because Jeff kind of gets me to just watch ridiculous movies that are ridiculous. But I like some. I kind of like the best when they're not taking themselves too seriously, because they're just not, like, movies, especially ones where you, like, see the scary thing. It's just not scary. Like, we watched one last Halloween. I think it was called The Barbarian. It's on Netflix. But the premise was super scary. The first half, super scary. And then you see the monster and you're like, this is the monster? Are you serious? And then, like, it just ruins the movie. But, like, movies that know that, or, like, they know that they're dumb and kind of, like, can laugh at themselves. Like, they're not trying too hard. I like those better. So I kind of like a mix of them. But I definitely have watched more scary movies lately than I used to. And they're pretty good.
Yeah, no. Hard up nope over here. Like, when you're talking about, like, movies that are scary, but they're not designed, but they're, like, making fun of themselves.
Yeah.
You know what movie I think of?
What?
Sharknado.
Oh my god, I love Sharknado so much.
But, like, it's not even scary.
No.
But I don't think it's also not designed to be scary.
No.
But that's how much of a wimp I am. Where I was like, oh, I don't want to watch Sharknado because it's scary. And then I watch it and I'm like, oh.
It's just dumb.
It's hilarious.
I'm pretty sure they go to space in one of the later ones. Like, that is...
Yeah.
That and Fast and Furious are franchises that are just taking themselves too far.
I'm pretty sure in is it Fast 9? They actually did go to space.
I think so. I didn't see it, but I heard that. Yeah. Sorry guys,
yes.
Spoilers for Sharknado 5 and Fast 9.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. It's like the one thing that, like, we don't 100% agree on.
I know. It's wild. But yeah. I just love, like, Halloween night, actually watching an actual scary movie. And it helps because, like, kids will be ringing the doorbell so you get a break. You don't have to be too scared. So dumb.
I keep seeing the memes for, like, the It clown, like, in the sewer being like, hey. Yeah. And I'm just like, no way.
Yeah, I actually haven't watched that one. Maybe that's one I'll watch this year. But, like, clowns are just terrifying.
Terrifying. And it's actually funny because my husband's like, you love Supernatural. How is it?
I was just thinking about Supernatural because of clowns.
Yes. And, like, I admit, especially in the first season or two, there are some really terrifying moments for me of Supernatural that I'm just like, oh, I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just, super wimpy.
I think the first season really is the one that has the scariest shit. Like Bloody Mary and...
The Scarecrow?
The Scarecrow, yeah. The girl in the picture.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Terrifying. And the Benders. That might be season 2. But the Benders is the one where it's the people, not the...
Yeah.
Anyway... There's some really scary episodes in the first season or 2 of Supernatural, but
it tames out a little bit.
It does, yeah. It's more of a drama after that. There's no real scary things or twist things.
Yeah.
I guess once you take away the fear of death, nothing really matters anymore. Because it really, like, the first season is terrifying some points, but, like, there's nothing. I can't think of any later seasons, anything that was scary.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. This is not a Supernatural podcast. Although I'm sure we would have enough to talk about that too. But yeah, so just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone and things might get saucy. I think they do get a little bit this week. So it's our third week with Fourth Wing and we're reading chapters 20 to 29. Sorry, I said 20 like I was going to say a number after it, but I had no number. So last week, we ended off with the gauntlet and threshing, and many people died. I think Violet even said it's like the day of the most deaths of a year, basically. Violet obviously is now target number 1 again for everybody except for Xaden. Which is good. for us, not so much for them.
Yes, yes.
Because they're now basically attached because their dragons are mated. Also, Violet was attacked in her sleep, which is the only time that she's supposed to not be attacked. And Andarna stopped time because she's just a baby. And Xaden killed everyone. And we basically ended with him demanding who unlocked the door to let them in. Because she saw who it was, but we didn't get a name last week. So she doesn't really want to tell him because she doesn't think he'll believe her. Da-da-da-da-da. So chapter 20 starts with the quote about accusing wing leaders. It's apparently the most dangerous accusation because if you're right, we have failed as a quadrant, and if you're wrong, you're dead. So it's not great.
Yikes. And yeah. Which is what Dain does, like, on the daily.
I know, and he doesn't give a fuck. Like, he's all rules all the time, and then he's like, Xaden, you're...
You're a terrible person.
Like, Xaden should just kill him. He has every right.
Yes.
I think he should. Maybe in the next book. I doubt it, though.
Yeah. I feel like Dane's around. Like, he's just around now forever, so...
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah.
We have to deal with who we have.
Yeah. So the next morning they're at formation, and Violet's kind of thinking back. She actually doesn't even know if Xaden believes her about who she told him opened the door. And she's like, "Ew." So I guess she just said who it was, and then he left. Because we don't actually get that part of the conversation. So Xaden then walks up to Dain, and Violet can only think of how she wants to screw him. Like, she is so hot for him. Like, that is the only thing she can think about at all times.
Amazing.
It is. I kind of love it. It's like a bit unrealistic because you're like, you are in constant danger, but I'm here for it.
But like, also, how old are they? 20 or 21?
Yeah, she's 20 and he's 23 or something.
It makes sense for their age.
Oh, 100%.
Sex on their mind all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would 100% be the same. I'd be like, oh my god, he's so fucking hot. I'd probably be like telling you nonstop, and you'd be like, yes, fuck off. Or you'd be like, I know, right?
Yeah.
Or both.
Let's take turns.
Yeah. Really, though. Anyway, so Xaden is there to tell Dain that there's a change to the squad, and Liam Mari is switching into their squad for another first year. And Liam is apparently massive. He's like top of the class. And he also has a rebellion relic. So when Violet hears that, she basically just snaps at Xaden that she doesn't need a bodyguard. And he just says, you do, though. And he says he can't be everywhere she is, but Liam can because they're in the same year. And he's also on archive duty now. And he's in the room next door to her. So he's literally like...
Yeah, Xaden literally pulled some strings to make sure that this first year is everywhere that Violet is. So
at all times.
She cannot get attacked again.
Yeah. So Commandant Panchek goes to the front, and he has a codex in his hand, and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? So they're whispering about it, but Dain looks back to tell them to be quiet, and he notices the bruises on Violet's neck. Because he hasn't looked at her all morning. But she tells him that she's fine. And he just, like, keeps staring at her. And she has to literally say his name before he, like, snaps out of it. And he asks if, like, this is what Xaden meant by last night. And then he asks why she didn't tell him about it. But she just says later. Because obviously there's something big going on.
But, like, when would she have gotten the chance? Like, she was attacked in her sleep.
Yeah.
And then she had formation the next morning, first thing. Like, when was she going to tell Dain she was attacked?
Yeah.
And also, like, what has given him the right to think that she would run to him and ask?
And tell him. When his whole thing is about her safety. Obviously, she'd want to hide the fact that she was attacked from him because he'll just be like, that's another reason for you to leave.
I told you so.
Yeah. Asshole. So Panchek is still at the front, and he says there's been a breach of the codex. But Violet kind of stops listening and is talking to, I guess, Rhiannon and Riddick or whoever's there. I guess Liam's there too. And she just says she misses sex. Because they're like they're just having a chat. But she says it's not just the like physical part of sex, but the connection too. And then like all she can think about is how Xaden would be so good at the physical part. You're like, yeah, he would. Xaden is currently walking towards the front, and he is the accuser, and Violet at this point is like, oh shit, this is about me. And you're like, obviously it's about you. Like, why would you ever think it would, like, what did you think was gonna happen? Knowing who she said it was, like...
But, like, I also feel like, remember, she said that she wasn't even sure that he believed her. So, like, maybe she thought that he would maybe do some investigating on his own first before, like, officially accusing...
I guess.
In front of it. Like, he wasted no time.
He really...
all.
Yeah. It is excessive. But... even if he went out and was like, there was a breach in the codex, like, people attacked someone in their sleep, it's still about her. But, like, that could easily have been the thing that he brought up. He didn't have to, like, go all out. But he does. So Xaden explains that she was attacked in her sleep, and that's against the codex.
He doesn't say that it's her, does he?
No, not at first.
But, it is implied.
Yes. He wouldn't care about anyone else. So bad. But it's true. And he says that his dragon alerted him. Also, his dragon wouldn't alert him if it wasn't her. So it happened that him, Garrick, and Bodhi arrived and like saved her basically. So Garrick and Bodhi witnessed that he executed 6 unbonded riders. And Nadine, who is a new squad member, says that it's convenient that they're all Turs, which is from Terrandor, I think is the name of their province.
Yeah, it's the province that tried to rebel and like create their own kingdom.
Yeah. It's just interesting because you're like, wouldn't she say they're all rebel children? Like, that's kind of what she's getting at.
But I also, like, they said that the people that weren't rebels, like, just because they're from Terrandor or wherever,
yeah,
that doesn't automatically make them rebels and doesn't make them have that rebellion relic. Right?
Yeah.
Some of them, like, some of the people remained faithful to the kingdom, so they didn't get the relic on them. So
yeah, but that's why I'm like, all 3 of them are rebellion children. So you'd think that she'd be like, convenient that they're all marked, or whatever. I don't know the right way to name them, but whatever. But it's just showing, like, I think we talked about it last week, but some of the new people that are on their squad are very prejudiced against the rebellion kids. Yeah. Xaden then says that a rider opened the door, and then he calls wing leader Amber Mavis to swift justice. And Dain just, like, loses his shit and says, what the hell? And Riddick then tells Nadine that Amber is apparently a tier 2 and asks if she's only biased against the marked ones, which, like, you're sure she is. Mm-hmm. But
no, she's not marked. Amber. Oh, you mean Nadine.
Nadine. Yeah, Nadine is biased.
Yeah.
And then Dain says, Amber would never. A wing leader would never.
Yeah. So there's only 4 wing leaders total, which is like... So, and she's also the one that accused Violet of cheating at the gauntlet. And
in the first week, I don't think we mentioned it, but we mentioned it last week, it's kind of implied that her and Dain may have slept together or had a more intimate relationship, or they just like geek out over rules together. Maybe they didn't sleep together, who knows. But Dain turns to Violet and tells her to tell everybody that Xaden is lying, which, like, he's accusing a wing leader of lying right now. Like, yeah. It just, his logic doesn't exist. But she just says, like, he's not lying, obviously. And he does not believe her at all. He says that wing leaders are beyond reproach. But, like, obviously not Xaden in his eyes. But Amber steps forward and says she didn't, and Dain immediately believes her. And he just, like, goes to Violet to cup her face to take the memory.
Yeah. Because we established what we established last week, that his signet, his power is if he touches your face in a certain way. Yeah. Or was it the week before? If he touches your face a certain way, he can get your recent memories.
Yeah. So he goes towards her with his hand and says, "Let me see." And she's like, "Whoa, bye." Whoa, bye. She's like, "Whoa." Cause she basically knows, like, if she shows him the memory, he'll likely see the whole memory and see that she was able to stop time, which she's not allowed to tell anybody. Yeah. And, like, obviously wouldn't want people to know. Yeah. But I don't really know if I know we don't, actually. I don't know if he can decide what memory he wants when he touches somebody's face. Like, if he sees a flash of everything recent. Like, I don't know how his power works, and I don't think we really get it.
Not in this book, we don't get it. I hope we get it, more of it in the future. And I hope we learn of ways to combat it in the future.
Don't let him touch your face, I guess.
Well. Sure.
Yeah, not like that's... Yeah, it's... Ugh. Wear a mask at all times. Yeah, so he is walking towards her like he can have the memory, and she says if he touches her without permission, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. Which is good. I love it. I'm glad that she said no. Even if the only reason she really did was because of the time stopping, like, I think she would have shown him if that wasn't something that happened, which I don't like. I do
too. But I will say, though, that his action, I think she brings up in the future as, like, you didn't even ask. Like, you tried to get it without consent. Yeah. And I think this is another big moment for her, realizing that he's an asshole.
Yeah. And, like, looking back after finishing the book, him just assuming he can have it is, like, the biggest red flag that we all skipped over. Yeah. So Xaden says they need the other wing leaders to, like, the 4 of them are supposed to make a quorum, and obviously Amber probably doesn't have a vote, I guess. I don't really know how.
Well, I can't imagine if she's the accused.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being like, I vote for me to be free.
Yeah. But then 6 dragons show up. Taryn, Sigale, Commandant Panchek's dragon, and then the dragons of the other wing leaders all show up, because this is, like, super serious. Dain will not shut up about Amber not breaking the rules, because he's like, she loves rules, she would never. But Violet's like, that's why she's after me, because she loves rules and thinks that I cheated on the gauntlet. Like, that's why I'm the weak link here. Yeah. Amber yells at Xaden then that he's using this as revenge against her family for not supporting his father, which is just, like, a low blow. Yeah. And, like, all the shit that he must get all the time, it just makes me feel so bad for him. Yeah. But Xaden just ignores it, and the fact that, like, he's doing this and he believes Violet without any proof at all, like, she is so grateful, but, like, even more than that, because, like, you can see the contrast between them, between Xaden and Dain, and how they reacted to this news, and, like, it's just, he trusts her, and she's not used to it.
And it's like, he literally, like you said at the very beginning, she told him who it was, and he, like, essentially just left. Like, he required no further proof than that.
Yeah.
Whereas Dain is, like, refusing to believe it and needs to, like, invade her brain in order to believe her.
Yeah.
Which is just, like, such a blow. Like, you would think your best friend would have faith in you.
Yeah.
Like, why would she lie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, if I were Dain, because I wouldn't be an asshole like Dain is,
I wouldn't be Dain.
I wouldn't be Dain. But, like, if I were Dain and I heard this news, like, yeah, he's like, oh, it's just Xaden making stuff up. Like, just tell them, Violet, it's not true. And if Violet's like, no, it's true. Like, if I were Dain, I'd be like, what motivation does Violet have to lie about Amber Mavis? Like, there's no, like, reason for her to be against this wing leader. It's not her wing leader. There's nothing that she's done. They don't really connect. They don't, like, interact with each other. So, like, why? Like, what does Violet, why would Violet have to lie?
Yeah, I guess the only thing is that, like, Amber was against her on the gauntlet thing, but, like, that doesn't really matter. Like, there's no, who cares?
Yeah.
Xaden said it was fine. He's a wing leader too. Like, so yeah, there is really no reason, but he obviously isn't using his brain, if he has one. And I think in the moment where he's, like, walking towards her and says, show me, she's like, oh yeah, he has that power. I forgot about it. And you're like, oh. Yeah. Anyway, not the point. So Violet is, like, just so overwhelmed by Xaden's actions that he is going to bat for her with no proof against a wing leader, that she asks Taryn if he can share her memory with the other dragons. And
because there's no fear of them seeing the memory, because they all know about baby dragons and Andarna's ability, probably.
Yeah, but I think he cuts it off before it gets to that point, because the issue with Dain is we don't know what he'll see. Yeah. Because we don't know how his power works, but, like, Taryn can show it and just, like, show that one scene of it being Amber and then be like, done. Yeah. Because I think he shows, and, like, this isn't something that's done outside of mated pairs. Like, you don't share riders' memories with other dragons. Yeah. But I think Taryn shows every single dragon. Ever. Yeah. Maybe not ever, but that's in the school, basically. Because even Rhiannon is, like, that bitch when she sees it in her head. So, like, the dragons share it amongst themselves, and then the dragons share it with their rider. So everybody sees what happened. And Violet just yells at Dain and tells him, like, this is why she didn't tell him. Even though she didn't really have a whole lot of time, but...
But also, like, what is why? Because she knew he wouldn't believe her, I guess?
Yeah. He deserves to be yelled at.
Yep. He deserves a lot more than that.
Well, yes. So the wing leaders come to, like, a unanimous, obviously, agreement that she is guilty because they just saw it. Yeah. But Amber argues that she was getting rid of the weakest rider, and that isn't a crime. But, like, the crime against the Codex is that you can't attack people when they're asleep. So, like, it is a crime, obviously. Yeah. So she's sentenced to die, and Amber yells out to her dragon, Claude? Reminds me of Psych, that one episode. But Taryn basically just, like, stops Claude from being able to do anything by just, like, looking at him, because he's the hierarchy of dragons. Like, yeah, you can't go against Taryn or you'll end up dying too, basically. Violet asks if this is necessary, and Taryn says it is, and she actually begs Xaden to give Amber a chance. So, like, Violet is a nice person to a fault, maybe? Yeah. Like, so many people die around here, and she's like, no, don't kill her, even though she was trying to kill me. And you're like...
And that's one of the reasons Xaden likes her.
Yeah, I think it's a bit... Like, if she didn't want her to die, she shouldn't have told Xaden.
Yeah.
Because, like, this is, she knew this is what would happen. Like,
yeah, I mean, she's an expert on the codex.
Yeah, this is the rules. Them's the rules, folks.
Yeah.
And Taryn just says, like, he let someone live once, and that was Oren, who literally had her in his arms and was about to kill her. So he's like, not doing that again. And then Taryn just, like, lights Amber up, and she gone. So
amazing.
That's that. Basically the next week, Liam is going everywhere with her, which she finds super annoying, but he's also, like, just a nice guy too. So she can't be too mad. But having Liam so close to her, Violet really notices the hostility towards any of the marked kids.
Yeah.
So she asks him, like, how he deals with it. But he just counters that she's rude to him all the time, so it's no different. But she says, like, she's rude to him because he's always following her around, not because of what his parents did.
Which I love, actually.
I do, like, too.
I love that.
I do, too. It's great. I'm like, I get it. But then she starts to kind of think to herself that, like, maybe she's no better, because realistically, like, she hated Xaden on sight when she met him, and, like, he didn't do anything to her. Like, his father killed her brother, but he didn't do anything. And, like, she immediately hated him.
But I thought her immediate hate for him was based on the fact that her sister was like, don't get close to him because he'll try and kill you.
Yeah.
I like that. Like, if somebody said that to me and said that person's gonna try and kill you, so, like, stay away, I probably wouldn't really like them either.
Well, especially since, like, some of the first words he said to her were, why would I waste my time killing you when you're just going to fall off the parapet?
Yeah. Not nice.
Yeah. No. I think that was mutual enemies. I don't think she really... And, like, she has a more personal reason to dislike his family, too, than most people. Yeah. Like, obviously some people do have, like, family that have died, I would say. But, like, she clearly has a very personal connection. Mm-hmm. But Liam kind of just says, like, Xaden is like that. People either hate him or want him because of his father. And Violet kind of realizes that Liam actually knows Xaden really well. Yeah. Which is interesting.
Like, hate him or want him? So does that mean that, like, even, like, Liam?
Yeah. Like, Liam wants him. No, it seems like they kind of grew up like brothers.
No, I know, but, like, if it's either you hate him or you want him, that just seems like...
Yeah, I think it's one of those, like, you want them or you want to be them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they're going to the archives and they meet up with Jacinda? I can't remember right now.
It's Jacinia, isn't it?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they both sign hello to her, and Liam is super flirty, which Violet tells him to stop because she says, like, Jacinia isn't looking for a fling, like, she's actually looking for a relationship, which surprises Liam because obviously scribes aren't used to people dying all the time and aren't afraid of that, but writers are like, any second they could die.
Yeah. But
this scene just makes me sad. Because of what happens in the book. Because, like, when I read this the first time, I was like, oh, that'd be so cute if he got together with Jacinia.
I agree. I think it would be so cute.
I would love it. But Liam tells Violet that she would have been wasted in the scribe quadrant. And he says he's seen her with her knives, and Xaden was right. Like, she should be a rider, basically. She asks Liam what he wanted to do, like, I guess in life. And he says he just wanted to stay alive. And then she asks how he knows Xaden so well, and he says that they were fostered together. And she says she thought he would have gone with his father, but he says his father died the same day as his mother. But Violet says his father wasn't a part of the rebellion, and he's not listed on the death roll from the executions. So she thought his father had lived. And Liam is also surprised, like, she read the death roll, but she says she had to make sure someone was listed. And Liam says Fen Ryerson, and she says that he killed her brother. But he says then, like, his father wasn't killed in the execution. He was killed at their house that same day, and he had to watch that time too. So even though it sounds like he wasn't even a part of the rebellion and he was just executed, which is sad. So Liam says that he was fostered with Xaden, and his sister, who's only a year younger than him, was actually fostered elsewhere. So they separated the children, which is awful.
Very sad.
But Violet says, like, she didn't hear of any of this happening. Like, kids being fostered, and, like, I don't know what she expected happened, though. Like, I guess she just didn't really think about it, because she was also a kid at the time. But Liam says that he'll at least see his sister next year when she ends up in the Riders Quadrant as well. So, that's good? Question mark?
I just, like, this is the one thing that bothers me, is that, like, I understand that she was a child, but she's been studying all of this for years. Like, why? Yeah. It just seems a bit naive of her to assume. Like, I'm sure there are people that lost, like, either their sole parent or both parents, like Xaden. Like, where did she expect him to go? Yeah.
I don't really get it. But I guess, like, she was studying it. Really, she should know. But, like, I guess she is still young. Like, 20 is not that old. And, like, maybe she just didn't think of it because she was, like, I don't know. But, yeah, it is a bit, obviously. But she asks Liam then, she's like, what if your sister chooses a different quadrant? And he says, we don't get choices. You have to go to the Riders Quadrant. Any children of traitors do. Yeah. Which, I guess makes sense, but is also something that Violet didn't really know either. So it's just interesting what must be like, because it can't be classified, that information, because obviously all of the kids that are there know, because they didn't have a choice. So it's just weird that there's little things that she just doesn't know.
But
even though she studies this.
I guess I will say that, like, she's been very sheltered too, right? Like, she's essentially grown up in the school. So, like, I don't know, maybe, like, has she ever met a Rebels kid before?
I don't think she had. And, like, Xaden is the oldest of all of the Rebel children, and he's only 3 years older than her. So, like, there's nobody that is outside of the school, because he's still in his third year. Like, there's nobody that has graduated yet who is a rebellion child. So, like, they're not around in any way other than the school. Yeah. So, you can kind of understand it, I guess. But Liam says that, like, he thinks that they are forced into the Riders Quadrant to give them the best chance to rise out of their past, but others think it's because they think that the dragons would kill them on sight. And now that the dragons haven't killed them on sight, they're like, oh shit, what are we supposed to do with them? Yeah. There's 107 of them, of children of rebels. And like we said, Xaden's the oldest, and the youngest is 6 and was born with a mark. Like, these are painful marks, but this child was born with one, because the dragon
blew on her in utero?
I guess?
Blew up her mother's, like, vagine.
Ew. Just to see how big a dragon is. I hate it, thanks.
I'm sorry. It's just the first thought that popped into my head.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to, like, go up her vagina into. I think it was probably she probably didn't have to take her clothes off. Oh god. Anyway, so they get the books, and Jacinia also brings them a scroll for Professor Markham, because he didn't take it before he went to go teach battle brief. So they leave, and Violet asks him how he can guard her when her mother oversaw the executions. And Liam just says he owes Xaden everything, so he has to keep her safe. Because I guess he also knows that if she dies, string of events, Xaden dies.
But also, it's not very comforting. Like,
yeah,
it's like it's. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of From Blood and Ash that we did a couple months ago when Castile is like, she's like, how can you even bear to be around me? And he's like, I'd do anything to keep my people safe, even be around you. And it sort of gives you the same vibe. Like she's like, I don't understand how you can be around me. And you would hope that he would be like, you're not your mother, or like something to that effect. And instead he's like, I owe Xaden.
Yeah. Which is like, in this situation,
not
it's
comforting at all.
No, it's not as bad in this situation because they've only really known each other for a week.
Yeah, and they're not like romantic interests as of yet. So like,
yeah, that would be sad. That'd be so sad. So they're basically walking back, and the scroll falls off of the top of their cart, and it opens, and they're like struggling to close it, but then they read some of it, and it says that there was an attack in Somerton, and a supply convoy was looted. And she kind of like looks at it, and like the scroll doesn't say classified, so she tells Liam what was on it. She's just thinking about it, but it's another high altitude attack, clearly looking for something because they were like looting and searching.
And back in the first week, they discussed a similar attack in battle brief class.
Yeah. At this point, Taryn wakes up and he's starving, and he has to dampen the bond because like she immediately feels it. And we get here that like you actually don't learn how to dampen the bond until you until you start to channel. Because you can't go to the professor of magic class until you like start channeling. Like, you don't need your signet, but you have to be able to channel. But Liam also hasn't channeled yet, so like he stays with her everywhere. But all in all, like she can't dampen any bonds between her and Taryn, so like all of his emotions come immediately into her unless he dampens them, which shouldn't be an issue.
Sucks for him.
Yeah. So they end up going to battle brief, and Violet can feel when Xaden shows up. And there has to be something more to this, because like I get awareness and knowing that someone's around, but there has to be something more to her being able to like, she feels it.
Like it's like a tingle.
I guess we kind of do get it, like what it is. Because like he has a bond into her head. Is that later this week? I guess like maybe that's part of it, but like there's something.
Yeah, I don't know. This is why I love the whole like mates thing, because it explains like these like, oh, I could feel him looking at me at the back of my head.
Yeah.
Like we as humans, we don't feel that shit.
Yeah. I guess, would she be able to feel if Taryn was close to her? I don't know if we've gotten that. Because, like, when they were doing threshing, they were like, you'll feel it. Go where you feel like you should go, that kind of shit. Anyway, not the point. Liam announces that Xaden is there, and she just gives him the finger without even turning around, which pisses him off. Which I just kind of love. I love that, like, I love their dynamic, and I know it's so much like, he's her superior and he's her leader, and, like, she really shouldn't be antagonizing him, but she is, because she can't help it. But I just love it. Even though I get that, like, really, he should punish her for it, but he can't do anything because he can't kill her. What's he gonna do? Yeah. If he killed her and then killed himself, it would be real bad. So they're all sitting around for class, and they're talking about how Violet is targeted, and Violet argues the only true attack on her or targeted event was at night, and Liam isn't even in her room to stop something like that. So like, what is like him being
what's
around
the
her.
point?
Yeah, what's the point? But he says he isn't opposed to it. Which
to Liam
I
being in the room and like, woo!
Yeah, really though. I'm like, that'd be fun. And then they kind of get into like a conversation about how Violet is sexually frustrated, which is basically a theme of the book at this point. And Liam offers to review candidates, and they just like kind of tease him about it. It's just a sweet moment. But he then says that Xaden has also warded her door, so only she can open it. And she's like, well, if he warded it, then obviously he can open it too. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of like, in her head, she's like, it's kind of sweet, but it's also like all of the shit that I hate that Dain does.
Yeah.
So she's of two minds about it, which is like where we are with it too, but we love it.
But we're not, though.
Yeah. Not at all. We don't care. So she ends up dropping her quill on the ground, and Shadows pick it up for her. So he's like 100% paying attention to everything. He's listening to this conversation. He listens to everything, I'm sure of it.
But also, they use quills. Really?
I know, but
quills.
Yeah, but it's so wild because she says like they use quills, but then once you start channeling, you can use an ink pen because you can like use your magic to use the pen. So that means that all of the scribes are using quills because they don't have a dragon. So like, that's wild. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't like it.
No, are there like typewriters? Is there something easier for these poor scribes? Like, I don't understand technology in this book.
No.
And I don't think we get a lot of it. Like, we really don't get anything about it. Anyway, so Battle Brief ends up starting, and there's an announcement that the winner of the squad battles, which is in the spring, will be going on a trip to the front lines. And everyone's super pumped, and Violet's just like, to die? What? This seems like a terrible plan.
Yeah. Like, why would you want to go to the front lines of a war?
Yeah.
Like, of a battle.
But everybody's super excited.
I feel like they're all just going stir crazy, because they're not allowed to leave
probably. Yeah. Or talk to anybody outside. But then they basically start the class, and the prof says nothing is happening on the front lines, so they're going to discuss an old battle. And Violet and Liam are just like, what?
Yeah.
And
well, because that scroll said.
They read the scroll, yeah.
And it said there was something that happened.
Yeah. So that's weird. They're keeping secrets. But Violet just thinks that the scroll must have been classified, or like they're still getting information on it and they'll bring it up later on.
Yeah.
But first, I guess. So now we get to a new chapter. In the beginning, there's a quote from her brother, and it says, the first rush of power is unmistakable. And, like, there's more to it, but just, like, that was the key I took from it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, a month or so has passed, and there's no word on Somerton in the battle. In the looting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Violet still can't channel, so her dragon hasn't channeled to her yet. Rhiannon and Violet are sparring, and Violet is, like, talking to Taryn in her head, so ends up distracted. And Dain has made every Tuesday night a squad sparring night. That's a hard word to say, too.
Amazing.
So her whole squad is there, and Jack is also there because he's using his downtime to spar too. But Violet says Rhiannon is holding back, and as she says that, Xaden walks by and says Violet isn't wrong. But Violet says, like, he doesn't have a say because he isn't doing anything to help her. He's just forcing Liam on her. And Rhiannon tells her to, like, use her anger because she's pissed about Xaden not helping her, I guess. I don't really understand why she's so pissed at him at this point. Like, he is getting other people to do shit, sure. Like, Liam is watching her all the time, and Imogen is helping her train. But, like, I don't know why she expects him to drop everything he's doing as a third year.
But, like, do we think that it's just the fact that, do we think it's just the fact that she wants to hang out with him and be around him? Like,
yeah.
Is he avoiding her?
Yeah, I kind of wonder if, like, maybe he is really avoiding her and she's just real hung up on him. That's probably likely. But then Xaden and Garrick start to spar shirtless, and Violet just stops in the middle of sparring and just watches. And, like, obviously Xaden is fit because they're in this quadrant where they have to be fit or they're gonna die. So she is just ogling him, basically, and, like, his relic takes up, like, his whole back. So I think she says hers only goes from shoulder blade to shoulder blade, but his is his entire back, and it's, like, just his giant dragon. And his rebellion relic sweeps up his arm and around his neck, and, like, his muscles are just amazing, and she's just there drooling. And Rhiannon ends up hitting her with the staff and says, "Pay attention," but then she realizes what's happening, and she stops to watch too. They're both just, like, mesmerized by them because they're just so hot.
Yeah.
And Liam literally tells them to stop objectifying their wing leader. And Violet just is thinking about how good it would be to be underneath him. Not Liam, but Xaden. But then she notices Imogen look over at Xaden and Garrick in the same way, and she starts to feel jealous because, like, she kind of thinks there's a little something going on there. Dain yells at them to get back to work, and she feels like he's talking directly to her, which he hasn't actually talked to her since Amber was executed, which is wild. That's a long time, dude.
Yeah, like, that's literally, like, a month and a half now. And I'm just like, it's fine. Just let him go. Like, you don't need him.
Yeah. So Rhiannon and Violet get back to it, and Rhiannon ends up knocking her into the mat harder than she wanted to, and Violet, like, loses her breath, and Jack starts to mock her and says that, like, this is the rider that Tairn chose, like, he can't believe it. And Liam gets in between them, and Jack tells him to back down since he can just challenge her in a few weeks anyway. And Jack's friend offers him a slice of orange, and he says to get that noxious shit away from him or he'll end up in the hospital, which is just an interesting tidbit. And then Xaden comes over, and Jack says the reason that Violet is alive is because of basically Xaden and Liam being around her all the time, which is fair-ish. Mostly because I think Jack would have killed her by now. But Violet gets her breath back and stands up, and Jack looks her in the eyes and says they can settle it now if she's done hiding behind the big strong men. And she knows that he's right. Like, she can't really do anything now, or the guys would kill. Like, she can't really fight him now, or the guys would literally kill him. Like, Xaden and Liam would just kill him.
Which is fine, though. Like, who cares?
I know.
Like,
exactly. But then she yells at him that he ran and that he will run again because that's what cowards do. And Dain is literally like, what the fuck? But Xaden just says she's right. And Jack rushes at her, but Liam, like, just kicks him out of the gym and takes him out. I imagine by, like, the back of his neck, like a little kitten. Then Dain comes over and asks what she was thinking, egging him on, and she says, "Oh, now you're talking to me," because it's literally been a month. But Xaden steps in between them and asks why she isn't wearing her vest, but she said, like, she has to take it off at some point to wash it, and it's currently drying, because now she needs to wear it while she sleeps. But he says, like, she's safe in her room, but she doesn't completely trust him. Which I get, I guess, but I'm like, what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
He can't kill her.
Yeah. It's silly at this point.
Yeah. And she, like, he literally says he can't kill her, but she says he can hurt her. And all I can think about is emotionally hurting her.
He could break her heart.
He could easily. But he tells her to stop training with a staff and to stick to daggers because, like, it's too easy to take a staff out of her hands.
Yeah.
But she says Taryn distracted her, and he says block him out. But she says, like, she isn't channeling, so she hasn't learned how. And she says, like, she basically says she isn't channeling if he didn't notice. And he says he's painfully aware of everything about her. Which I love.
I
Love it
know.
so much. It's my fave.
I also love it so much.
Violet is, like, vibrating with anger at this point, and Dain cuts in that she just isn't used to the bond yet. And this, like, is a moment where Violet realizes that everybody is just watching her and Xaden, like...
But, like, also, I find that this scene was, like, very, like, sexually charged. Like, there was...
Oh, everything between them all the time is sexually charged. Every interaction, so
like,
sexually charged.
Like, in my mind, they're, like, right up in each other's faces and very close to each other, and it's all hot. And then Dain, like, inserts himself, and it's just like, why? Like...
Fuck off, Dain.
Yes! Like, get the hell out!
Yeah. Which is basically what Xaden says, because he says, like, Dain chooses the oddest times to defend her and the most convenient times not to. And you're like, whew, piece of shit.
But it's true, because right now,
100%.
He's defending her against Xaden, who wouldn't hurt her anyway. I don't care what anyone says. And when Amber actually orchestrated her death, he's like, no, Amber wouldn't do that. I don't believe it. And then, even after seeing everything happen, didn't talk to her for over a month. Like, what is
his
wrong?
fault.
What is wrong with him?
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Ugh. So Xaden walks away from her then, and she sees his back, and she gasps because he has, like, 100 silver scars on his back that are just, like, texturizing his tattoo, basically. And she's like, what the fuck? But we don't get what it's about yet.
Yeah.
But Taryn says she held her own and controlled her temper, and Andarna says she's ready, and, like, this is all in her head, obviously. Later, when she's in her room, she feels a rush of energy and then another wave, and she feels the energy pour in. And she falls to the floor, and, like, her head is screaming, but eventually it, like, ebbs away, and the power stays. So this is the rush, I'm assuming, of power. So she tries to ask either of the dragons if that's what this is, but neither of them answer. And she thought that it would take longer, but she's happy she'll be able to, like, go to Professor Carr's class with Rhiannon, and that Liam can go now, because she says he's been hiding the fact that he can channel so that he can stay with her all the time, which is shitty. She opens her door, and an overwhelming need takes over, and Liam is standing outside, and she realizes she's feeling lust, and she looks at him, and he's just like, what's going on? And she kind of clicks that, like, this is Taryn's emotions, and Taryn is feeling very frisky at the moment. So now she is feeling very frisky. So she tells Liam to go to bed, and she ends up pacing her room. And, like, these feelings of... She calls them lust in the book, but it's, like, just horniness. Completely. But it's coming in waves. And she realizes, like, she needs to get outside or she'll end up in bed with Liam. And she doesn't want Liam. She wants Xaden. So she goes outside, and Xaden is literally there, which is convenient.
Yes.
And he's smoking churum, which just kind of sounds like weed. It's, like, illegal, and he says it helps block it out, so it just kind of sounds like weed. So he offers it to her, but she says no. She tells him that she feels like she's on fire, and Xaden laughs, and she can't look away because she wants him so badly. Like, this scene, if there was sexual tension before this scene, they're like...
But, like, it's also really hard, like, if you have somebody else's, like, lust running through you, like, I feel like it would be really hard to not feel it. Like, if you have no control.
100%, yeah. Yeah, and both of them are feeling it, so they're both, like, not really in their right minds. And he's also possibly high.
Yeah.
But yeah, big fan. So she can't look away from him. She wants him super badly, and she knows that it's not just Taryn. It's because she's also just obsessed with Xaden, and she's like, shit.
Yeah.
But Xaden tells her she needs to learn how to shield, or it'll end up driving her mad or into someone else's bed. And she says she knows, and that she's horrified to see Liam again. And Xaden's like, what? And he asks where Liam is, and she says in bed, and he says, your bed? And there's a crack of lightning, and she says no. And she kind of wonders if he's jealous, but he says she's in no condition to consent to having sex with Liam right now because it's not her emotions, so that's why he didn't want her to have slept with him. Which is very sweet.
Yeah. Like, I like that he's on the consent train, even though we both know that it's because he's jealous.
Jealousy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do appreciate that too. So she ends up almost like literally falling over with need. And he asks why she isn't shielding. And she's like, I can't. I have not learned how. But he says he'll talk her through it. And she's kind of surprised he's going to help her. But he says he's been helping her, like, all along. But this is where she's like, it was actually Liam. And he's like, Liam didn't kill the people who attacked you. Or very publicly take out a threat against her in a polarizing event. And she says to him, like, it wasn't polarizing. But he says that she was torn. She didn't want him to do it. Yeah. So, like, when she asked him not to, that really, like, hurt him. It hurt his soul, it seems like. Like, he really wants to give her everything. God, I love him so damn much.
Because remember that she is the scale to which he judges whether he's a good person or not.
I love it. I love it so much. I can't with them. It's too good. And then he basically just, like, cuts himself off and says, we aren't fighting tonight. Like, this is not the time. Although, if they had some angry hate sex right now, I would be so happy. But that's not what happens.
Yeah.
He actually tells her to ask him nicely because he says he wants payback. And she's like, for what? But he says, for scaring him to death all the time. So she actually does ask him nicely. She says, pretty please teach me before I climb you like a tree and we both end up with regret.
Yeah, I love it.
Climbing like a tree.
Do it, yeah.
Do it.
Yep.
It's just, I need it. But he tells her, like, he's in control of his faculties. Like, he wouldn't let that happen, basically, because he can control himself.
Or he wouldn't wake up with a regret.
Well. He touches her face, and he just, like, she says, do you need to be? And he says no, and he just says that her skin is so touchable. But he tells her to close her eyes. And we kind of get into what the process for, like, dampening the bond is. But he tells her to envision somewhere that feels like home. So she obviously thinks of the archives. Then to feel her feet hit the ground and dig in, and that's called grounding. And then to call to her power and identify where it's coming from. And in her head, that's a doorway. And then to close it off. So she struggles with it because it's hard to close this door in her brain, obviously. It's like a mental challenge. And she ends up grabbing his arms as she closes and locks the door. And then the door becomes, I think, see-through, because you can't completely, like, cut off your bond. You can just kind of dampen it. So she has that done. And Xaden calls her astonishing and says it took him weeks to do this. And he tells her that touching her was a bad idea, and she agrees. And he says kissing her would be worse, and they'll both regret it. And then he says fuck it, and just kisses her. And I love it so much. But she's between him and the wall, and she thinks it's the only place she wants to be. And he, like, picks her up, and she wraps her legs around him, and her hands are in his hair, and he's rocking his hips into her. It's like getting super hot super fast.
I love it.
And she wants him more than she's ever wanted anyone in her life. And she thinks he has the power to break her, and she would just let him. Which I just...
Hot.
They're so hot. They're so hot. She gets lost in him, and she, like, kind of loses her mental foothold, and then there's thunder and lightning, and he breaks the kiss, and he kind of has panic on his face, and he closes his eyes and, like, lays her down and tells her that she has to leave because he refuses to act on desire that isn't hers. Let's note here that he doesn't say it isn't his. He says it isn't hers because it's Taryn's. He doesn't say he doesn't want to act on it because it isn't his desire. But anyway, she does kind of try to argue that she wants him, but he's insistent, so she just, like, runs back to her room. And as she's running back, she just thinks, like, he's the one that stopped them from making a mistake, and she didn't. And now she's like, tomorrow's gonna suck. It's gonna be awkward.
Yeah. It bothers me, though, that she, like, it bothers me that she's like, oh, he's saying no, like, he's rejecting me.
I know, but...
And it's like, think, like, he's not doing it because he doesn't want you. He's doing it because he thinks you don't want him.
He's doing it for the consent reason that he said about Liam. Like, It's the same thing. But I also, like, just think back to when you were 20 and boys. I'm like, I get it. I get her feeling like he doesn't want her.
Yeah.
But he does. It's so obvious to everyone else. And, like, there's a bit of this in this book, and I guess, like, it's a thing in all books that have this kind of shit where they're like, do they actually like me?
Yeah.
And you're like, ugh. Although one thing I will say about Violet is she's very emotionally aware of herself.
Yeah.
Which is something that, like, is not common in books or in real life. For people to be that emotionally, like, I don't know what the word is, but smart, maybe? Like, she knows what she's feeling, and she can kind of, like, detach and be like...
Yeah, analytical about her feelings.
Yeah, I appreciate that, even though I can't do that as a person. I'm just jealous. So the next day, Violet is telling Rhiannon everything. And it's kind of funny, because when I read this the first time, I was like, I can't believe she's telling Rhiannon about, like, kissing Xaden. And then I was like, but, like, I would tell
Yes.
you if I made out with somebody.
Yes,
like,
thank you.
But literally the first time I read it, I was like, why is she telling her? Like, he's their wing leader. She shouldn't tell her. But I'm like, obviously you would. I would tell everybody. I'd scream it.
Mm-hmm.
But Violet kind of, like, through talking to her, realizes that, like, they have to be together for their whole lives. So it's probably could easily get awkward if they had have done anything last night. They kind of talk about what she's going to do after Xaden graduates, because, like, he's a wing leader, so he gets to pick his post, but they haven't actually talked about where they're going to go. But Violet knows, like, she'll have to follow him while she's in school, because Taryn and Segal can't be separated for longer than a few days. And, like, that's why most mated pairs bond in the same year. But I guess, so, in a past book, not a past book, that's, I don't know what the fuck that was. Those words didn't make sense. At one point, they say that Taryn would just follow Segal wherever. I think it was the other way around. the last rider that Taryn had, Sigale would just follow him around because she didn't have a rider at the time.
Yes.
So I guess, like, can the rider not be separated from their dragon either?
Well, I guess the whole point is, like, they're working, right? They need, if they are riders, their dragon can't very well leave, because then how will they work?
I know, but, like, if you're in school, there's more to school than the dragon stuff. There's more to school than flying. So, like, wouldn't it just make more sense for the dragon to just leave for a day and then come back?
Because I guess, like, I thought they had some of the same classes every day. Like, they have, like, battle brief every day, but they also have, like, flying. Like, I'm sure they have several flying-based classes that they have to do a day.
Yeah, I just think, like, wouldn't it make more sense for the dragon to miss flying once a day on the day he has to leave, as opposed to her missing days of class? I don't really get why she needs to go too, is what I mean.
Yeah, and I get, yes, I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, it makes sense. However, I'm more thinking of, like, you know, depending on where, like, in this hypothetical situation, depending on where Sigale and Xaden get stationed, like, it may take a day, like, a couple of days to even fly there. So, like... Yeah,
but then she's, like, the amount of school she's going to have to miss is astronomical.
Yes, but, like, so even if she didn't go and stayed behind, she's still missing key instruction for days because she doesn't have her dragon.
Yeah, but at least she'd get the other stuff.
I guess.
Because, like, well, I don't know how, maybe you can't use your signet if they're that far away either.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems, I know that's part of the problem. They don't either. Like, I just don't know how this is going to work. But yeah, so they're still talking, and Violet says, like, Xaden is the most powerful rider of their generation, so he's going to be at the front lines, which, like you said, could be days away. And Rhiannon just says, for now, and Violet's like, what? But they're interrupted by Liam, because Violet had snuck away from him, and he's trying to find her. Then Rhiannon shows Violet, I guess, her signet, which I don't know what you'd call it, but she's able to vanish a book and then reappear it in her hands. So, like, all of the riders can use magic to, like, make something move to them, but to physically make it disappear from one spot and appear somewhere else is
rare.
Not something, it's not a signet that Violet has heard of, and, like, obviously she's studied everything. So that's just interesting and could be helpful.
Yes.
Liam gives Violet a wooden figurine of Taryn, which is super sweet. Like, he makes little wooden figures, and anyway, I just want one. I want a wooden figurine of Taryn.
Oh, me too.
Like, I want all of the dragons, please. Violet sees Xaden talking to other wing leaders, and all she can think about is she wants Xaden even more now that she's kissed him.
Yeah.
And Xaden can, like, feel her looking at him. So there's something in this. There's something, they can feel each other. There's not just her, but he looks over to her, and then he, like, looks behind her, and Dain is there, and Dain asks to talk to her. So they kind of move away from people, and Dain, this is literally the first time that he's talked to her since Amber, basically. And it's been months, or a month and a half or something.
Yeah.
But he says she let Taryn show everybody the memory instead of just showing him. And he does say, like, he should have believed her, and that's on him. But she didn't tell him about the attack either. And we're like, when? When was she supposed to tell him? And this is where she says, like, he didn't ask for the memory. He just went to take it from her, like he was entitled to it. Which I think is an important
I'm sorry.
line.
Can I just say that the fact that they are having this conversation and he is getting mad at her blows my ever-loving mind.
Yeah.
Mind blown. I am shocked and appalled, and I disbelieve, and I'm so upset. It's not. It's not fair. Like, can you imagine the audacity?
Yeah, he's manipulative. That is a hard word, but he is. He is that word.
Like, fuck's sakes! Like, he is getting mad at her because she shared her memory with everybody instead of just him, as if he's something special. Like, dude, go fuck yourself. Sorry, I have a lot of feelings.
No, I completely agree. He, like, and then, like, as he's talking to her, he goes to, like, touch her, and then he, like, doesn't because he's like, we're in a fight.
Yeah.
But you're like, well, what was he gonna do? What was he gonna take this time? Mm-hmm. And then he brings up Xaden, of course, and he tells her that she should hate Xaden too, but she says it's more complicated than that. And then Dain says she trusts Xaden more than him. And she kind of tries to deny it to him, but then she's like, shit, it is kind of true. So she tells Dain that him trying to keep her safe is keeping her from growing. And she was worried that she'd be too weak. And then he cuts in and says he's never seen her as weak. And you're like, fuck off,
yes,
Dain.
You do.
You've said that, like, you say it all the time. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, remember in the very beginning, like, she literally says something like, you know, I'm the weakest or whatever. You think I'm the weakest. And he's like, but you're not to me. And it's insinuating, like, you are, but I don't care. Like, I still like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you are an asshole.
But he also, like, he says at one point in the first week, too, that, like, riders who are completely healthy didn't even get dragons last year. And you're like, that is obviously insinuating, A, that she's unhealthy, but also that she's weak. Like, I hate him. But she actually cuts him off and says, it doesn't matter what he thinks. Like, that's the point. She is a rider, and everyone else believes in her and knows it. So until he can accept it, they're not going to get past this. And Dain says, like, Xaden gets a pass for protecting her, but, like, he doesn't. And she's like, Xaden will literally die if I die.
Yeah.
So, and then she says, what's your excuse? And Dain says, like, that she doesn't know everything about Xaden and that he has secrets and reasons never to forgive her mother, and he doesn't want her to be used. And she's just kind of thinking this through, and she asks Dain if, like, he has been trying to get her away from Xaden, not necessarily, like, out of the quadrant just because she was in the Riders Quadrant. Like, if everything is literally about keeping her away from Xaden. But then she just drops it because she's like, I don't even care. And she says, like, he needs to respect that she can keep herself safe. And he touches her face and agrees. And then he says he's sorry for not asking for the memory. He never says sorry for not believing her.
Nope.
Never. And I am not okay with it.
None of us are okay with it.
So she goes to Professor Carr's class, and he's the wielding, channeling, magicking guy. And he asks, 100%, yeah. And he asks if she's developed her signet yet, but she obviously hasn't. She only started channeling yesterday. But he mentions that Mira's signet she can make a ward around her entire squad, and Brennan was a healer. So he's expecting a lot from her, even if she is smaller.
Yeah, he says more delicate.
Yeah.
And it's like, excuse you?
Like, she made it this far. Fuck off.
Yeah.
But then Rhiannon tells her that she's got this because she is the most powerful rider of this generation, not Xaden. And she's like, oh shit. Like, Rhiannon, she can tell Rhiannon actually believes that. So, like, it's so sweet. I love their friendship. A month passes, and Violet is working on her channeling, but she hasn't manifested her signet yet. And she's won her first challenge now that they're back to challenges. And she is exhausted from all the mental work of having 2 dragons and all of the working out, and Xaden hasn't spoken to her yet about the kiss at all. We get now that, like, Riddick can wield ice as his signet, and Liam can see miles away, and she can now use an ink pen and unlock doors.
Woo!
So, like, yay.
Good for her.
Yeah. Another week passes, and she wins another challenge, and it's the last week in January, and she finds out that Jack is going to challenge her. And she's just like, shit, he's going to kill her. And Taryn just tells her not to let him. You're like, thanks, Taryn.
Yeah.
So helpful. Right? She ends up telling Liam that Jack is going to be her challenger today on the condition that he can't tell Xaden because, like, Xaden can't really stop it. Like, Jack's been challenging her or trying to challenge her forever. Like, this needs to happen at some point. So, if Xaden did stop it, then it would show that she thinks it would show weakness on her part, which I think is fair. But Liam obviously begs her to let him tell Xaden, and she's like, not yet, no, basically. But they get to, I guess, that class challenge time. What, like, these classes
the gym,
are wild.
I don't know.
The gym, yeah. And she finally lets him run off, and he tells Riddick to watch her like he's him, and it's just a cute scene. I kind of liked that scene, because Riddick's just like what? Like, I'm 6 inches taller and, like, stronger and shit, and I just love it. So Jack and Violet start their challenge, sparring, fighting, all that, and in her head, she just thinks that she hopes Xaden dying if she does is hypothetical. Jack only takes one knife, and she takes all of her daggers, obviously. And Taryn is in her head and trying to instruct her, but she's just, like, overwhelmed. But she ends up drawing first and second blood, and she thinks, like, she wants him to get off of his guard and angry so that he makes a mistake and she can win. We also get here that, like, you can't throw daggers during these because you could accidentally hit another group of people, which makes sense.
Which is stupid. It's like the
really,
one thing she's good at.
Yeah. I get it, kind of, but it's also like, that's dumb. Jack flips her onto her back and goes to stab her in the chest, but obviously her vest deflects it. And Riddick yells that he's using death blows, and the professor's just like, pull it back, Jack. And Jack whispers that this is how he knew it would end, and her wing leader can't save her. And thinking of Xaden and how, like, if she dies, he dies, she rolls out of his hold, but she has to, like, subligate her shoulder to do it, which I don't really know. I guess tear some muscles or some shit. I don't really know. But she ends up getting up. She kicks him in the balls, and he falls to his knees, and she tells him to tap out, because if this was real life, she would be able to, like, slit his throat, basically, right now. And he says if this was real life, he would have just killed her immediately. And he throws a dagger at her, and she puts an arm up in front of her face, and it lodges through her forearm. Ooh. And then he's moving and attacking her again, and he gets his hands on her face, and he's using his power, which is also, you're not supposed to be allowed to do, but it's, like, shocking her. Yeah. Like, I don't understand what his power is.
Electric. I thought it was just, like, electricity or something.
Yeah. But she basically knows, like, this is it. He's going to kill her now. So she takes a vial out of her pocket and throws it in his throws the contents in his mouth as her vision is darkening. And Riddick yells that he's using his power and tries to help her, but, like, the power is transferring to him through her. But then Jack drops her and grabs his throat, and she tells them that it was oranges and that he's allergic, and then she passes out. She wakes up in the healer's quadrant, and Xaden is sitting by her bed, and he just says oranges, and Xaden actually tells her that she should have killed him, but she says, like, she didn't want to. Like, she hasn't killed anybody, which they've had a conversation about before, I think. But Xaden says she should have told him, but she says, like, he couldn't have done anything. And she says he hasn't been around to talk to. She says that if she didn't know any better, she'd say this kiss scared him off, basically. But he says, like, the kiss is not up for discussion and that it was a mistake since they're stuck together for their entire lives. Like, it's a bad idea to have a relationship.
Yeah.
If
he's not wrong, though.
He's completely right. Like, this is a terrible fucking
idea.
Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want it. I want them to fuck right now in this bed. Although she's, like, super banged up. But, he also tells her that he's taking over everything when it comes to her. And he says, like, Jack pinned her way too easily. So, like, her sparring practice isn't going well enough. And Liam didn't tell him when she found out that she was sparring with him. So, like, he's taking over everything with her now, which is hot. Possibly shows that I might have issues, but it's fine. If Dain said that, I would want to murder him. But I'm like, Xaden, yay! So the next day they're on the mat, and he tells her to leave her daggers. So she, like, takes them all off. But he has weapons, and he has, like, dozens of daggers strapped to him. And she says they probably could have waited a few days since she's, like, got stitches in her arm and, like, she fucked up her shoulder. But he says, like, she needs to know how to fight in pain. And she's like, that's a really good point, actually. But then he tells her, like, her problem isn't her fighting style, because she is fast. Her problem is her daggers are too easy to take out of her hands, and she needs weaponry that's designed for her body. I know. And he shows her one of the daggers he has, and it's beautiful, and he says it's hers, and he had them made for her. Like, goddamn, I love him. I want daggers. And she is just, like, completely surprised. And she says that it's incredible, but that she can only have weapons that she's earned. And he's like, yeah, so earn them. And he puts her on her back. And, like, the sexual tension here is just wild. Like, they kind of banter, but it's all sexual innuendos. And, like, she brushes her lips on his ear, and he, like, jerks away from her. And it's just, like...
He's like, do you know how to handle an opponent on top of you? And she's like, I know how to handle you on top of me.
Right? I love it. But he tells her to disarm him before he basically just, like, screws her right there. And you're like, yes, do it in front of everybody. I'm fine with it. Like, I didn't think this is where this book was going, but I'm good with it. Oh, yeah, he basically says the reason that he's being sexual is because he's showing her that there are other ways to disarm people.
Yeah, right.
Fuck off.
Yeah, right.
Ugh. But she does start taking the knives, and then she rolls him onto his back and ends up on top of him, and, like, she gets the rest of the knives off of him. And then she explained how he got her back on her back. I think maybe I don't really understand logistically how, but anyway, then she's on her back again, and he's, like, right between her thighs, and all she can think about is how bad she wants him. And she tells him it's not fair to use his powers, and he says, in the real world, they will, but she can't use hers yet, so he says that he'll have to work with her on that too. So, I love him. The blades are all super pretty, and they apparently have Tyrish runes on them, and she doesn't know what they mean. But, like, he has to know what they mean.
Of course he knows what
and,
they
like,
mean.
I know, but I want to know what they mean, because I'm sure I love it so
it's
much.
It's definitely, like, to my sweet violence, or, like, my, something like that.
My darling violence.
Yeah.
I love them so much. Oh, God. I just imagine in, like, one scene, she's gonna, like, learn how to decode them, and then she's gonna be like, he gave these to me before he even, like, said he loved me, and, like, anyway, not going too far into a future book. So February ends up passing, and Xaden is training her, and Dain is being annoyed by it all, and it's almost been 3 months, and she hasn't developed her signet yet, which is not good, because you can implode. Literally, people are dying left and right still. 2 riders died because one, like, manifested a fire signet and just killed them both immediately. They lost 2 members of their squad because one of them developed, like, an ice signet and froze them, both of them, to death. They're talking about the squad battle that's coming up and, like, how they could possibly win. They only have 12 people in their squad now, including Dain, and he basically tells Violet that she really needs to start manifesting soon for the squad battle. But Xaden shows up and says that she isn't going to Professor Carr's class today. And Dain kind of argues with him because it's his favorite pastime. But Xaden says, like, she's not going to manifest in class, or she already would have. Like, it's clearly not working. But Dain says he's not comfortable with her not practicing today. So Xaden pulls out a watch and tells her to bring it to her. And she does. Like, it's a bit hard. She almost drops it, but she gets it. And then Xaden says, see, she's practiced. And then they leave.
Love it.
There's just so much... I just don't know why Dain has to argue with every little thing that Xaden says.
Because it's Xaden.
I know, but I hate it. So dumb. But Xaden takes her to her room to put on her flying leathers, and he opens the door for her and, like, holds it open, and she's just, like, shocked. And I'm like, I don't think it's that weird, but okay. And he says, like, his father taught him, basically, his manners, and then he's obviously sad because his father, he loved his father, and she can feel the grief on him, basically. But anyway, she goes to change, and then when she comes back, he's back to his normal stony-faced self. The new riders haven't been flying in the weather because it's February and it's awful, but all the other, like, the second years and third years are, and it's only because, like, the first year riders need more time working on wielding. But he says, like, Violet's going to be on the front lines next year since their dragons need to be together. So she needs to know how to fly in this kind of weather too. And he kind of brings up that, like, next year they're both going to have to sacrifice to make this work because their dragons are mated, which we've talked about a few times. He also tells her, like, the squad battle isn't really as big of a deal as everybody makes it out to be. He says, like, once you're in third year and you see the shit that goes on there, like, it's really nothing in the long run, but, like, everybody is panicking about the squad battle and who's going to win and all that. They walk to a stairwell, and Commandant Panchek and it's Colonel. Is that how you say Colonel? Colonel?
Yes.
Not Commandant.
Yeah, Colonel.
But Colonel Atos. Mm-hmm. Like, his dad is a colonel. Why is it spelled so fucking dumb?
I don't know.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it. Anyway, Colonel Atos are coming down the stairs, and Dain's dad says that, like, she's looking well, and she says, like, Dain is her squad leader now, and he says, yeah, Dain's told him that, and he says he's been talking to her sister, and that she's asked about her, and, like, next year she'll finally be able to write her sister, which is good, because first years are not allowed to contact anybody for an entire year, which is just insane.
Stupid.
So stupid. But then her mother steps into the stairwell, and she just says she hears Violet is having trouble wielding. And she says she has the best shields in her year. Like, yeah, she doesn't have a signet yet, but she's doing good. But her mom says she'd hope so, with Tairn being her dragon. If not, his power would be squandered. You're like, fuck, she's being a bitch.
Yeah.
She asks her what power, if any, she's wielding from the gold dragon, and Tairn in her head tells her not to say anything, and Violet obviously says nothing yet, and she says that Aunt Darna told her Feathertails are known for not being able to channel, and that's why they don't bond, which is obviously a lie. But Dain's dad then asks if they can study Aunt Darna since they know so little about Feathertails. But Violet says, like, Aunt Darna wouldn't be comfortable with that. She's super private, even with Violet. Mm-hmm. And Dain says, like, Dain's dad says that scribes have been looking into Feathertails since threshing, but the only information they've been able to find is from hundreds of years ago, which is odd because he remembers her dad was working on something to do with Feathertails. And Violet says she doesn't think he finished the research and she doesn't know where it is. But in her head, she thinks she does know where it would be, but we never get anything else on this in this book, and I want it. I want more information. Her mother says pity and says it's good to see she's alive, even if the company she's keeping is questionable.
Yikes.
Which is just so shitty. Like, Xaden's a wing leader. Like, I just don't know why we have to be so shitty to him.
Agreed.
And Xaden literally says he thought that they resolved those questions years ago, and her mother just hums and then tells Violet, well, I think she says Cadet Sorengale master a signet since she has a legacy to live up to. And it's like super dismissive and like not calling her like just so unpersonal. Yeah. And this person is her mother.
Cadet Sorengale. Yeah. Don't disappoint us.
Yeah. Like not even anything to do with her. Like it's just, yeah. So they end up leaving and Xaden is surprised that Violet hasn't already told her mother about how she survived the attack by stopping time. But Violet's just like, I never see her, and you told me not to tell anyone.
Yeah.
And I get it, because, like, obviously if you had a normal relationship with a mother, that is something you would talk to them about. Especially if they were a rider, you'd be like, hey, holy shit, this happened, type of thing. But he just says he didn't realize it was like that between them. But she says that that's nothing. Her mother ignored her for a year after her father died.
I'm sorry, this is just lending more credence to my theory that it's not her mother.
Yeah, but, like, I just don't, like, she's obviously her father's daughter.
Yeah.
So her father likely cheated and then kept the kid even though...
I'm assuming.
Maybe his mistress died in childbirth?
Maybe.
I don't, like... There's something going on, obviously. Yeah. Like, her mother is an asshole.
Hates her, seems like.
Yeah.
She really doesn't like her.
Well, and then, so she notices at one point during their interaction, too, that her mother looks at her hair, and she thinks she must be looking at the silver, and, like, her mother said that it's her curse. Which is why I'm like...
That's why you think it's
what
like a
fuck
prophecy.
Is going on? Yeah, or, like, I don't even know. There's something that... maybe you'd think that they'd notice if she literally had the exact same hair as somebody else that wasn't her mother. That'd be shitty. Anyway, I don't know. But she asks him what he meant about resolving things, but he just says boundaries. And then they end up in the flying field, and Terrence, Sigale, and Andarna show up. And Xaden tells her that they're all learning today, and she's learning to stay on... I almost said her horse. But she's learning how to stay on Tarn, and Xaden is going to try to learn why it's so hard for her to stay on, and Andarna is going to learn how to keep up, and Tarn is learning to share space, and Sigale is going to have to learn how to follow and not lead now that Tarn is in the mix. And Violet just says, like, dragon relationships are incomprehensible. But he says, try a human one sometime, just as vicious, with less fire. Which I just love.
Yeah. This is going to be fun. Okay, so, we pick up, like, a week or so, maybe 2 weeks later. It's, like, the squad battle. So this is, like, the big moment when all the squads are, like, ready to go. And they're trying to earn that field trip, we'll call it, to the front lines.
Yeah.
So we come upon like the middle of a sparring session, I guess, like a challenge. So Liam is sparring with somebody on the mat, and the Rhiannon and Violet and all the rest of them are on the sidelines, and they sort of tell us that, like, if Liam wins the sparring match, then their squad jumps from 7th place up to 3rd place. And obviously Liam does, because he's the best cadet in their year.
Yeah.
Dain and the other section leaders are not present, which Violet finds strange. So Commandant Panchek steps onto the mat and explains the next exercise.
I love this exercise.
I know, me too. So apparently it's starting right now. So the squad leaders and the executive officers, aka Dain, and the section leaders, have been sequestered so that they can't get help from them. Mm-hmm. So their mission is to find the most valuable thing to their enemies, and the winning squad is going to earn 60 points. And that means that if Violet's squad wins, they would end up in 1st place. And, the wing leaders and the section leaders, they're the ones that are going to be deciding the winner. Which I don't really understand, because I feel like they're all going to be biased towards their own squad.
Yeah, but I guess, maybe you don't vote on your own.
Maybe.
But you vote on everybody else's.
Maybe.
I don't know.
So the boundaries are that they have to stay within the school. They're not allowed to leave school grounds. And they have 3 hours to bring it to, a specific classroom before the 3 hours are up. So Imogen leads the squad right away into an empty room, and they brainstorm on what they can get. And they have a few ideas, but Violet comes up with an idea to break into her mom's office. So one of their members, Quinn, can astral project, which is super cool. So they send her to distract it's only one guard guarding the entire floor. So, super easy. I'm surprised nobody else thought of this, to be honest.
I guess they don't spend time in her office.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe they don't know what's there.
Yeah.
So, they send Quinn to distract a guard and, lead that guard, down another hallway so that they can break in. So they get into the office, and Violet is, looking on the desk for something to take. And she manages to find some letters detailing certain raids that, again, were not mentioned in Battle Brief.
Weird.
Yeah, so, we're getting this reoccurring theme of things that Violet would assume they would discuss during Battle Brief, and they're not. And there's also another letter detailing a political unrest in a province called Navarre, due to higher conscription laws. So it's a city or something in the province of Tirandor. So they are conscripting members more from that province, which seems unfair.
Yeah, and it's definitely has nothing to do with the fact that people from there were rebels. Yeah.
So the letter is it's a suggestion that maybe they should spend some money on the outposts out there and show the people that they do care about them being a part of the kingdom and stuff like that. So Violet, then she looks up and she sees a map of the province being spoken about and is confused. So, because she's confused why they're talking about defending it when it's naturally guarded by cliffs, so they shouldn't need a ton of defense. So, why are they suggesting to spend money on the outpost to make it more defensible and to give them more defense if they don't naturally need a lot of defense? Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. And then she realizes that this map has the location of all of the outposts and the supply routes on it, and that's what they need to take. So they get the map, they roll it up, they get ready to go, but the guard catches them But one of the other members of the squad, Emery, uses his wind magic to knock the guy unconscious. Whoops. All's fair in war. So they bring the map to the classroom, like, down to the wire, the last possible minute. And, of course, they are declared the winners. Therefore, they get to go on the field trip to the outpost.
I love her moment that she has with Xaden when all hell breaks loose and she just looks back and he looks at her and, like, smiles. And I'm like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. So it's funny. It says, like, Xaden tilts one corner of that beautiful mouth and tips an imaginary hat to me, bowing his head for a heartbeat before bringing his gaze back to hold mine. Satisfaction fills every ounce of my being as I smile up at him. It doesn't matter how the vote comes down, I've already won, because she has his respect.
Like, love it. I just fucking love it. I love them. Everything's perfect.
So they fly, like, we skip right to the field trip then. They are flying. They land wherever they are, and they are sore from riding so long. And when they get to their room, Rhiannon tells Violet something, that they're actually really close to her village. It's like an hour, like, by human travel standards. So, like, for dragons, that's like 2 minutes. It's like getting in an airplane and flying a 1 hour car ride. Like, you're literally up and then you're down and then it's over. So Violet, she is technically not allowed to go see them, but again, her sister is pregnant. She really wants to see her family. Apparently, her sister has had the baby at this point.
Yeah, I guess it's been months.
So her sister has had her baby. She doesn't even know if she had a boy or a girl. So, like, she wants to. It's so fucked up. So Violet promises, like, I will help you. We'll sneak out and go see your family. And Dain has obviously come with them, which I don't really understand why. Like, he wasn't involved in their win, so I don't know why he gets to come, but whatever. And when she says that, like, when all of this started and she first, before she actually became a member of the Riders Quadrant and she was excited to see Dain again, she said she would have loved this time away with him, but, like, lately she's just avoiding him because, like, she doesn't respect him anymore. So they have a meeting with the commander of the base, and somebody, like, shouts out, like, oh, hey, Violet, or, like, something like that, and she turns around, and it's her sister, Mira! So they hug.
So happy.
But, like, this is also what bothers me. So, like, nobody's allowed to make contact with her family, but, like, then they send her to an outpost where her sister is stationed. Like, that just seems a little, like, preferential.
Yeah, but I think it's, like, they said that they sent them there because it's, like, it's a safe one or something. But, like, it's I guess. Maybe they didn't expect them to win. Yeah.
Anyway, so obviously her and her sister hug, and Violet says she immediately feels, like, 1,000,000 times better, and, like, just that the weight of the world isn't on her anymore. So they spend a couple days there, and then one night Rhiannon and Violet sneak out to see her family, but Mira catches them and is like, no, you guys aren't going. And Violet's like, oh, yes, we are. And if you don't come with us and help us, we're going anyway. And then we could get hurt. So what will you do? So Mira just agrees to go with them. And it was not hard to convince her. And they go to Rhiannon's house, and it's a boy.
It's a boy.
I feel like I sounded like Mario.
Italian, like Mario.
It's a me, a Mario. It's a boy.
Mario.
Anyway, so while Rhiannon, like, loves on her nephew and spends some time with her family, Mira and Violet get reacquainted. They talk about everything that's happened at school, and they talk about what Mira's been up to. Apparently she has a new scar from a griffin raid, and she just mentions that she could have swore she saw a group of dragons across the border, which is crazy business. And it's like, why don't we, like, focus on this? But no, we just let this lie, and it's fine. And then we just are like, okay, whatever. And Mira then asks what's going on with her and Dain, because she can feel the tension between the two of them over the past couple of days. And Violet's answer is that she's had to change to survive, and he didn't let her. Ouch. I love it. I love how brutal she's being. And I love how, like, you know how women in books and movies and everything are just, like, supposed to be, like, more forgiving? Like, they just give millions of chances. I just love that she's not. Like, she is out of fucks to give, I feel like.
She is out of fucks to give, for sure. But she doesn't, like... I guess you can't really do anything about it because he's gonna be in her life for the next 2 years. Like, if he's her squad leader and then maybe he wants to be a wing leader at some point, like, she can't really just say, go fuck yourself. But and she did kind of, but like...
I feel like she's being nice.
Still touching her face all the time.
I guess in my head, like, she's still being nice to him, but she's not engaging in a friendship with him the way that they both sort of thought they would.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so she also says, like, the whole business with, like, Xaden and Amber Mavis, the wing leader thing, like, that sort of pushed them apart. So they chat a bit more, and then they all go home, and she asks Mira if she's ever worked with mated pairs before. And Mira's like, once. Like, I have once. Why? And she's like, I wonder how long we can be apart. And then Xaden just steps out of the shadows and says, about 3 days.
I love it so much.
So it turns out Sigale could not be away from Tairn any longer, so looks like Xaden is on the field trip with them. So the next day, Violet and a few of the squad, I think they did half and half. So, like, half of them are out on, like, a pretend patrol, and the other half are doing sort of like a battle brief exercise. But Mira is actually leading it, which is interesting. And she says it's, like, real awkward with Xaden there because he's not there in an official capacity. Like, he's not an official member of this field trip. He's just there hanging out because he has nothing better to do because Sigale is probably off, like, doing it with Tairn.
I get that they can, like, dampen the bond now and shit, but, like, can you imagine just being in class and just feeling your horny dragon on the other side of this dampened bond? You're like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
That can't be helping her sexual frustration.
Also, I will say, too, that Mira is not that nice to Xaden. Like, she is never... So, like you were saying, he is sort of the oldest of the the rebel children. So, he's the oldest one to have a rebellion relic. Therefore, none of the people that are, like, on active duty... that are active duty riders, no one has ever worked with one before. So she's not treating him kindly.
Yes. Which I hate. Like, I get it, I guess.
Prejudiced against
because for sure. And, like, everybody's kind of been like that. But I wanted her sister to be better.
Yeah.
I didn't want her sister to be an asshole. Yeah. And it makes me sad.
Anyway, so they're, like, in this little room around this, like, round, like, tactical table or something. And, like, Xaden is there, and Violet can't stop looking at him. She thinks he's super handsome. Yeah.
Perfect. Climb on him in class.
So Mira wants them to analyze a hypothetical situation in which things go sideways. So she asks, like, who in the room will be in control? And Dain's like, oh, me. It should be me. Which is, like...
That's me throwing
It's
up.
what he wants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry. So she's like, who's gonna be in control? Who's gonna take command? And Dain, like, he is immediate. He's like, it should be me.
Always. Yeah. Always me.
But then Liam's like, excuse me, because he's like, I'm the section leader, so technically I'm the highest ranking one in command out of, like, us here. Even though there are third years present.
Yeah, but I think he's still, like, they are part of his squad, so he is higher ranking.
Anyway.
It's like...
So he's like, oh, it should be me because I'm section leader. And then Liam's like, excuse me, our wing leader is here. Like, Xaden is right here. So he should be in command. Like...
Yeah.
But then, so Xaden's like, Xaden's like, for the sake of this exercise, like, Dain can lead because he craves it so much.
But you're like, he's not supposed to be there, so I do get it. I get why.
And, like, but we all know that that's exactly what he wants. He wants that. He wants the power. Like, he does want that position. He wants to be the leader. So, like, yeah, he can have it.
100%. He wants the power more than he cares about
anything else.
Exactly.
So, anyway, so, like, so Xaden's like, yeah, like, go ahead, Ados. Like, we all know you want it. Like, you want to lead, so go ahead. And Violet sort of, like, whispers, like, don't be a dick. Like, because he's, you know, he's sort of intentionally poking the bear when he doesn't have to. And he responds in her head the way that Tairn does.
Yeah.
He says, you haven't seen me start to be a dick.
Ugh.
And I love it. Because she's like, shit. Like, he can talk to her in her head. And she doesn't know how to answer back in her head.
Which is just so awkward.
But she can think into herself and he can read her mind. The way Tairn does. Like, she can't...
Yeah, so can he read her? Like, could he read her mind this whole time? Like, has she been on top of him, sparring him, and he's been like, shit, she wants me. Like,
I don't know.
I'm assuming not.
No, I feel like he probably also wouldn't, because he seems like such a fellow for consent, and like he's, you know, he's an ally.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. That would be like a bad call on his character, but I want him. Period.
Yeah. Anyway, so like they argue a little bit. He keeps talking into her head and she's responding by thinking to herself. And obviously he's trying to embarrass her since nobody knows what they're doing. So he's like, you know, stop like looking at me like that. Like, not in a sexy way, but like she's like angry. And, and like, he's like, you know, you can't give us away. So like, she's, you know, so they have to try and like maintain their composure, even though they're having a mental little argument. Dain is like frustrated. So like, I guess Xaden is like, listen, just pretend that you're not, that like, for the purpose of this exercise, like, you know, and in the war games that to come, you're going to be getting your orders from Dain anyway. So just pretend that I'm another member of the squad, like, for this exercise. And Dain, like, is pissed, and he's frustrated, and he lashes out at Xaden, saying, like, you couldn't wait more than 3 days? And Violet is, like, pipes up, like, it's not up to Xaden, it's Tairn and Sigale. And she's so delusional. She's like, oh, it's totally not up to Xaden, it's totally up to Tairn and Sigale as to how long they can stay apart. And Dane's like, really? Really? You're defending him on this? And he's like,
I can't.
He just, like, that's what I mean. He's like, because then Xaden, of course, is telling her in her head, like, you never considered that it was you that I couldn't stay away from? And so then she's like,
which is the truth. It is the truth.
But so then he's like, you know, be careful, you don't give away our little secret. And so yeah, Dain is like, oh, of course you're going to defend him. Like, I can't believe you forget how this guy wanted to kill you 6 months ago. And anyway, so like, they try really hard to get back on track. And Dain does take the lead, and he picks up everyone's strengths and assigns them tasks and, like, asks what everybody's signet is. And anyway, So they reach a problem that Dain can't figure out how to solve. And Violet is like, you are literally ignoring your most powerful asset because Xaden can block out the entire area for this exercise with his shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And Dane's like, really? You're that powerful? And so then Xaden blacks out the room just for fun.
I love it.
And like
just climb on him
yes!
now. So do you think he can see in the shadows?
100%.
Yeah, and his shadows are an extension of him, so, like, he can, like, feel...
Yep.
I can't. I love it. I love it. I love.
Anyway, so he, like, recoils the shadows, and then they finish the exercise, and Mira's like, I want to speak to Dain, Violet, and Xaden alone. And
it's just so funny because it's like they're in trouble.
Yeah. So she tells Dain, like, she flips out essentially at Dain for being pissed over something Violet can't control. And then she flips out at Xaden because she's worried that when Xaden graduates, Violet's going to be missing out on classes and training so the dragons can be together. So sort of what you were talking about earlier. Why can't she stay behind? But I am sort of wondering.
I think it's just a given that she's gonna have to leave.
Yeah, I feel like we are having a scenario of like the dragon and the rider are bonded, so they probably can't be away from each other for too long either.
Yeah. It seems like a given. It just was never expressly said. I don't think.
So Xaden points out that like he's the one missing out right now. Like he didn't make Violet go back and leave the field trip. He's not in class. He is the one missing out. So, like, she's not going to miss out on shit. And next year, they'll figure it out.
Yeah. I fucking love it. Because, like, it's so... I get why she's worried, for sure. But... I feel like she's just being shitty for the sake of being shitty. Like, she just told Dain that this is something that Violet can't control, and now she's yelling at Xaden about the exact same thing that he couldn't control.
So,
either.
like, Mira's big thing now is that she's worried that Violet is not going to reach her potential because she's going to be sort of, like, absorbed into Xaden's, like, shadow.
Yeah. Which, I
And,
get.
like, you know, I sort of get it, too. Anyway, so they're still sort of arguing, but someone then shouts that there's a drift of griffins on the way, and that the wards around the barracks are down. And so Mira, I know, so the outpost is under attack. So Mira charges Xaden with getting Violet out of there and protecting her, but Violet really doesn't want to leave. And Xaden forces her to evacuate, and she's trying to convince him to let the two of them stay. Even after everyone is flown away. She's like, I understand we need to get everybody else out, but like, Taryn would be a huge asset in battle, and like, I really think you and we can stay behind. Like, let's get everybody out, and then we'll backtrack and go back and help. And she's just so worried about Mira that she just can't leave. Anyway, so he grabs her face and kisses her, like, really recklessly, and it's like hot and
hell.
And initially Xaden actually does want to stay behind himself and fight, but Mira's like, no, I need you to go and protect her. So they make out and it's really hot, and then he tells her she needs to leave for him. And I love it. And then he puts her arms out to the sides, and she tells him that she will hate him for this. And he's like, I'm okay with that. And then Taryn flies in, grabs her arms, and takes her away. But I know. In fairness, though, she doesn't hate him for it at all. Because 2 days later, they're waiting outside Professor Markham's office waiting for news about Mira. So, like, she didn't hear anything about the battle, about what happened. She doesn't know if Mira's dead or alive. And so Xaden meets her there, and he asks if she still hates him. And she says yes. but she doesn't mean it.
No, of course not.
So he brought her a cup of coffee, and he told her that Sigale told him she hadn't slept. And she's like, tell Sigale to get out of my head. Like, to mind her business.
Yeah, well, kind of.
And then he tells her, like, he hasn't had a good night's sleep since his father declared the rebellion, which was 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's not great.
And she asks him, like, how old he is, and he tells her he's 23, and his birthday was actually in March. But he knows her birthday is in July. Because he learned everything he could about her the day he saw her on the parapet and decided to ruin her. And I'm like, I guess that's nice.
Yeah. Nice man.
So she asked if he still planned on that, and he said no. And Violet is frustrated and asks, like, what changed and when? Because, like, they still haven't, like, talked to each other about any of the feelings or any of the kiss or anything. And, like, so she's like, what changed and when? And he lists off a few things. He said, Orin holding a knife to your throat. Seeing bruises of fingerprints on your neck. The first time he kissed her, or the fact that he can't stop thinking about doing more than kissing her.
Yes.
So
more, please. More, please.
More, yeah. So they're speaking, like, having a little conversation in their head at this point. She finally figures out how to talk back to him in his mind. So, like, she says that when she goes to her little, like, archive with the door, Taryn's door is there, and she says that Xaden's door is like a glittering black shadow door that she just has to open. So a few minutes later, like, they're chatting in their heads, and things are getting a little, like, you know, should I not talk to you? Like, should I not mention kissing you or anything like that? And then Dain shows up because he is a wet blanket, and he always comes at the most inopportune times.
Yes, I hate it.
And, like, he's, like, asking her if she wants breakfast, and she's like, no, obviously I don't want breakfast. So Professor Markham then comes in a few minutes later, and she demands to know if Mira is alive. And, like, he doesn't want to tell her.
I know. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Wild.
So he's like, oh, it's classified. But she's like, she's my sister. I deserve to know if she's alive, and I deserve to hear. I don't deserve to hear about it in a room full of riders during battle brief.
100%.
And like, so valid.
Yeah.
And it manages to convince him, and yay, Mira's alive. None of the riders died. So a few days later, she asks Xaden if he has siblings. He does not. The next day, she asks him what his favorite food is. It's chocolate cake. And stop being weird, is what he says.
Because she's doing this all in their heads. Like, this is all, like...
She's just gathering... Because her thing is, like, she realizes he knows everything about her, but she knows nothing about him.
Yeah.
So, she asks another day how he knows Liam. And she already knows how they know each other. Like, they were fostered together. But he does tell her the truth and says they were fostered together. Then she asks about the silver scars on his back. And I feel like that's maybe a step too far.
Yeah. Like, there's going from favorite food, chocolate cake, to, like...
Why do you have 100 scars on your back?
Yeah.
So he gets annoyed, obviously, and won't say. And she's like, she's just trying to get to know him.
Yeah.
So... Oh, sugar. It's War Games Day, so it's time for a battle, they're going up against the First Wing. And she's super stressed because she still hasn't manifested a signet. And, like, if she doesn't manifest a signet soon, like, she's gonna explode, essentially.
It's true. I don't know why.
Anyway, so First Wing has Jack Barlow in it, and he's still looking at her like he hates her guts since she poisoned him with orange. So, they have to, like, go up against each other, and she's freaking out. So the whole point of today's exercise is sort of like a take on the Harry Potter, the egg thing, I think, like in Goblet of Fire. So they have to first, so they're each given a flag, and they have to defend their flag, but also try and retrieve the opposite wing's flag. So their plan for them is to pass the flag back and forth from person to person so that they're not like defending it in one specific position. So when she goes to get on Tairn, he's wearing a saddle, and she's like, I don't think that's allowed. But Tairn's like, I get to decide what's allowed, and he was like, you've worked really hard to keep your seat, and it's not your fault. You were built differently, so the saddle is obviously going to help. So they're talking about, like, obviously she has a ligament problem where she struggles, like, to build up her muscles. So she's just, she's built differently. So they're saying there's nothing wrong with that. So we're going to give you, like, an even playing field.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Love it.
So it turns out Xaden had the saddle made for her with design input from Tairn. She loves it. They flirt a little bit. And there's like talk about kissing, and it's super adorable. So he says, I bet it would be even more awkward if I kissed you now, huh? And she doesn't say, she thinks, yes, please, but she says to him, the next time we kiss had better not be to just piss off Dain. And he says, next time, huh? So, they're having some flirty flirts, and it's really love. I love it.
I love it. So
Xaden leaves to go steal the egg. He's going to steal the flag. And her squad mounts to keep the flag away. So Andarna wants to be a part of this. So Violet has her, like, roll around in mud to keep her kind of camouflaged. The saddle has, like, these leg straps, so Tairn doesn't have to use his power to keep her on. And she says, like, when they're flying, Tairn does this dive in the air, and she feels so free because for once she doesn't have to worry about falling off, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And she says at this moment she feels like a crackle of power in her veins. A crackle. And we don't know. So, but then they're attacked by a squad of First Wing. So they use, like, magic one-on-one, a little bit of, like, fighting and stuff like that. And Violet realizes that their flag is actually nearby where she is. So she calls for Xaden, because that's his job, is to retrieve the flag. So he's like, I'm coming. And then she looks up and sees that Liam is actually fighting one-on-one with Jack. And she's like, shit, I need to go help. So then Jack actually jumps onto Liam's dragon, and as the dragons are fighting, he stabs Liam in the side and pushes him off his dragon, because killing is allowed in the war games.
Of course it is.
And it's allowed everywhere. Who are we kidding?
Does not while sleep-ish.
So both dragons then collide into a turret, and Jack lands on it, and Violet's thinking to Tairn that, like, they have to get to Liam because he's falling and he's going to die, and she doesn't want him to die. So, like, she asks Andarna, like, they're going for him, and she asks Andarna, like, to time stop so that they can grab him. So they do manage to get him, and Andarna is obviously tired out. Using her power really expends a ton of energy, like we said before. So she's tired, but she's safe, and they transfer Liam to Rhiannon to get him to safety. And Violet is absolutely furious at Jack. So she tells Tairn to climb and makes the move to unbuckle herself so that she can fight him with daggers. But Tairn's like, no, sit down. So they fly towards Jack, and her power just starts sizzling and crackling and, like, racing along her skin. And the sizzle, like, keeps growing within her, and she feels, like, infinite. And she raises her hands towards Jack on the tower, and lightning splits from the sky and slams into the tower, causing Jack to fall off and tumble down the cliff, and he dies.
Which is, like, kind of necessary that he die, because he obviously knows that something happened that Liam was able to be saved. Like, I guess nobody else really noticed it, but, like, he definitely noticed that Liam, she couldn't have been there as fast as she was, so, like, if he lived, secret's out.
So, they then land. Fourth wing managed to get the flag from the first wing, and they got to keep their flag. But Violet is, like, freaking out because she killed someone.
Of course.
Taryn tells her, like, at least Liam is alive. And, like, everyone is super impressed with her signet. Dain comes to her, and, like, she starts to fall apart then. So, like, he tries to comfort her, saying she never has to use her signet again if she doesn't want to.
Fuck off.
But, like, Xaden's like, stop with the bullshit. Because, like,
exactly,
she is literally training to become a soldier. And once the higher-ups find out what her power is, they're going to use it. She doesn't get to not use it. She's going to be a soldier.
Yeah.
So, like, he's like, listen, Jack was a terrible human who deserved to die. And he was like, I wish I had been the one to kill him. But he's saying, like, you actually saved people's lives by killing him. Mm-hmm. And she's just really pissed because she knows that, like, everybody has signets. Everybody that she knows has signets that can be used for the good of the world. While all she has is a weapon. Like, what else can you use lightning for except to just kill people?
Yeah.
And Dain tries to tell her, like, oh, you don't have to use it ever again. And Zane's like, stop coddling her. She's a grown woman. And I'm like, yes, Xaden.
Yeah.
And he's like, your power isn't just a weapon, it's the weapon. And you can use it to protect an entire kingdom if you learn how to wield it. So, you know, he's like, he's building her up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love it.
Here for it.
So later she's in her room and she's wallowing and she's throwing daggers at the target in her room when somebody knocks. And obviously it's Xaden checking in on her. She's a little unhinged because she gets turned on just looking at him.
That's normal though for her.
But she just keeps throwing her daggers and that turns him on because she's really good at it. And he says that out loud, that like what she's doing is turning him on.
Love it. Here for it.
She asks, like, why he's here, if he didn't come to lecture her or offer to train her. And he's like, that's not why I'm here, and, like, I think you can take care of herself. And I'm like, that's sort of the first time he said that, because, like, he sort of doesn't. This whole section has been him like, I'm taking care of everything when it comes to you now, because nobody else can do it. Yeah. Anyway, so...
Including you.
So his response, though, is that he just can't stay away anymore. And I'm just like, oh!
Yeah. Love it. Big fan.
And she's just, like, feeling really down and desolate because she thought she was different from her brother and sister. And that she thought that when she was younger, that her path would be different. And since coming here, like, it has stripped away her civility. And turns out she's deadlier than each of her siblings. Like, her brother is a mender. Was a mender. Her brother was a mender.
Yes. Sorry.
I'll say it again. Her brother was a mender, which is like a type of healer. So, like, he helped people. Her sister uses, create shields. Like, so she's...
Which is, like, defensive. It's not...
So, like... Exactly. And she is thought that she was the least bloodthirsty out of all of them and the least equipped to be a soldier. And here she ended up with the deadliest signet. And, like, it has nothing to do with Taryn. It's...
Because, well, his last rider was a healer.
So, like...
So, like...
Having Taryn does nothing for her signet. It's the signet comes from her. So she said that, like, she thought that she wasn't meant for this, but the power means that lurking beneath the surface, there's always this violence that she didn't expect or want. And she's like, obviously this means that I was built and I was made to split things apart. And obviously there's something wrong with her. And Xaden tells her, like, obviously there is nothing wrong with her. That she wanted to be something else. And she wanted to record the battles, not be in them. So she's allowed to be angry that she killed someone today. And she's allowed to be angry that this person tried to kill her friend.
Yeah.
And they're, like, slowly stepping closer together as they're talking about this. And he tells her that she can be angry or sad in her room, but, like, in front of everyone else, that's why he acted the way he did. And that's why he, like, spoke to her in the way he spoke to her when they were in front of everybody earlier, because he knew that he had to say something to hold her together.
Yeah.
And he said, like, if she wants to get out her frustrations and her anger by hitting him or yelling at him, she can. Like, he's like, show me what you got, I'll take it.
Will you take it?
And, you know, he's like, we're riders, like, it's what we do. So show me what you got. And she just says hitting him is the last thing she wants to do, and then she's done fighting it. So he says again, like, come on, show me what you got. And she surges up on her toes and kisses him.
I love it.
Woo! And that's where we end.
This is where I'm sad. I'm
so
sad about that.
Because next week we get it. We get our spice where we wanted it to be. And this book goes from YA-ish to NA,
other than
for sure.
Yeah, other than the there's a lot of swearing.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I read a YA book last week, and I was shocked about how pissed, like, the fake swears make me. Like, if you're not going to swear in a book, it's fine. But when you, like, make up words, or, like one of the girls in the book couldn't swear around her parents because they were super strict, so she used to say different words, like fiddly sticks and, like, that kind of, like, dumb shit. And I was like, this annoys me much more than I thought it would. I like swearing in books. It's just where I am with books.
Yeah, I agree. I'm here for
Especially with, like, adults in books. Like, if you're in a situation in a book and you're like, crap, I'm like, that's not good for me. I don't know. It annoys me. Anyway, learned something about myself.
Yeah.
But, so, this is unfortunately where we wrap it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or on Instagram, Facebook at coffeeandcoread, or TikTok, that's the one, at coffee.coread. And there is a poll on Spotify about our week's Would You Rather, so please answer that too. Do you like spooky or funny Halloween movies?
So, just a quick note, if anybody is reading this book and has not yet heard about the special edition Fourth Wing that is going to match up with the Iron Wing cover that is being released in like 3-ish weeks, have a look for that on Amazon. It looks lovely, and there are 2 secret, or 2 like never before seen scenes in Xaden's point of view. So
cannot wait.
I know. Next week we are going to be reading chapters 30 to 39 of Fourth Wing. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.